How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to another video. So this is an announcement video that has been a long time coming, and honestly something I should have announced a lot sooner, but hey, we're doing it now. So, as most of you know, I mostly make Roblox trolling videos on this YouTube channel. That's what I've been doing mostly since 2019. But I have been a YouTuber since 2012, and, 2012 to 2019 is a kind of big, long gap. And what I mostly posted in that 2012 to 2019 gap was regular Roblox gameplay videos. But around the end of that gap, before trolling videos came in, I actually uploaded something very, very different. And that was a audiobook story. That's right, I actually wrote my own story, and I got voice actors together to voice the characters, and even got a writing team together to help me write the story. The story was called Faith Fulfilled, and it was based in the game of Minecraft, and that story is actually still up to listen to right now. We were going to make several books, but we only got through one. The first book was completely finished, and we actually started on the second book, but around that time is when the first trolling videos started coming out, and those videos started absolutely taking off on YouTube, getting tons and tons of hits, but the audiobook story just couldn't keep up. It was barely getting off the ground, and production was getting harder and harder and harder, so I made the choice to stick to content that got more hits and was easier to make. So it seemed like an obvious choice at the time, so Faith Fulfilled was abandoned. But, like I said, the first book is still available to watch to this day if you want to check it out. But even though Faith Fulfilled was abandoned, I still had a passion for storytelling, for making stories for people to watch or listen to. And so, for the last couple years, that's right, the last couple years, behind the scenes, I have been working on a brand new story. One that I think kicks Faith Fulfilled's butt. Like, I don't even think it's close. And this story is called Fallen Friendship, and it's inspired by a true story. The story is based on a fictional kingdom of my own making called Cordia, where my character, who's actually going to be called Barney, I couldn't think of any other name for him, and I figured it would make him more recognizable if you don't recognize my voice already. But, my character is the prince of that kingdom, and he has to take the role of becoming the king of that kingdom. But the problem is he's a little bit too childish for the role, so the story follows him being a part of what is known as the CRS, or the Cordian Royal Squadron, which is the kingdom's most elite group of fighters who are responsible for protecting the kingdom from internal threats, because the kingdom itself is kind of isolated in the middle of nowhere, so there's not a lot of external threats, but there can be internal ones, so that's what the CRS's job is, to, protect people from those internal threats. And Barney is put in that squadron so that maybe being in a serious job will help him kind of be more serious. But his best friend named Jake is also a part of that squadron. So the story is mostly about Barney, Jake, and the other members of the CRS trying to protect the Kingdom of Cordia from internal threats. But a lot of it is about Barney and Jake's friendship, if you couldn't tell by the name Fallen Friendship. And the name Fallen Friendship should show you most likely what is going to be occurring in that friendship, and that is that friendship was torn apart. It fell. That's why it's called Fallen Friendship. So at the beginning of the story, they're, friends and brothers almost. They very much have a brotherly love type relationship where they very deeply care about one another, but they also love to poke fun at each other, as brothers usually do. They're, picking on one another, making fun of each other, having a lot of, bickering and having a lot of fun with one another. But as the story progresses, things take a different turn. The comedy still stays, but around the end of the first of the two books, things take a more emotional turn. So yes, there's a lot of comedy, but there's also a lot of emotions running high. Throughout the story, you're going to notice that Jake, and if you've watched Decade in the Making, you may recognize that name Jake, because that's a name that I used in there as well when I went over the story of, what happened with my old Discord. So yes, the Jake in this story is based on the real Jake from my actual Discord server. But he is not as bad as he was. I wrote him as a much more likable character, at least at first, because the story revolves around showing that he's a good person, but he's a very flawed individual, and you see throughout the story how he changes, and he doesn't change for the better, but it's not entirely his fault. It's not entirely his fault. He makes a lot of bad decisions, but it wasn't entirely on him. It was because he had very bad influences. A lot of unfortunate things happened to him that were beyond his control. Things that, honestly, Barney could be blamed for. And it leads to him changing as a person. And my character, Barney, goes through a significant amount of changes as well, especially around the end of the first book and into the second book. He changes multiple times in the second book, and he goes through a complete metamorphosis in the second book. But mostly in the first book, he stays the same until the very, very end. Then he changes quite a bit. But yeah, so there's a lot of character development, development. I don't think that's even a word, but, the opposite of development, whatever it is, reverse development. Is there a term for that? Okay, whatever it is, I think you guys understand what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of that, in this story. So, yeah, like I said, plenty of comedy, but there's a lot of serious elements to it as well, and I did my best to kind of blend them together so it's not too overly serious, but also not, like, just a gag at the same time. Like the story's a big gag story. No. There's comedy to it, but there's also very serious and emotional moments to it. And, like I said, it's based on a true story that actually happened. Now, like I said, it's not about what happened in my Discord server. It's inspired by those events. Now, if you want to know about the story of my Discord, go ahead and watch Decade in the Making, my current channel trailer. It goes over my entire story as a YouTuber, including what happened with my Discord. I know it's a longer video, but I think you can find timestamps from where the Discord stuff comes in, so you don't have to watch the entire thing. Now, in terms of writing, the entire first book is done. The entire thing is finished in terms of writing, and I've already begun writing the second book. Now, in terms of, the voiceover stuff, I have a team of voice actors completely assembled and are actually working on the chapters right now. Chapter 1 is completely done. The only reason I am not posting that right now is because I needed to get this video out announcing the series, and I gotta get an artist to make an art piece to put on screen because it's an audio story. So there's not going to be really anything happening on screen. You're going to be listening to the story. So it's like a podcast, sort of. So yeah. So once I have that art piece done, I will post the first chapter. I will most likely post a release date somewhere on like a trolling video, like at the very, very beginning, or on my Twitter account, or on a community post, or posts as they're just called now on YouTube, or maybe all of those at once. Anyway, that's about it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.